The story you think you know about the Roloff farm buyout. That's only the surface. For years, fans have watched the emotional tug-of-war, the arguments, the heartbreak, and the moment Amy Roloff walked away from the land she built, the home that raised her children, and the dream that once symbolized unity. But what if everything we've been told was a carefully crafted illusion? What if the offer Amy accepted wasn't just unfair, but part of a calculated multi-million-dollar deception designed to rob her of everything she worked for? According to newly uncovered insider reports, the truth is darker than anyone imagined. Behind closed doors, a web of greed, betrayal, and secret financial deals was quietly spinning. And at the center of it all, Caryn Chandler. Sources allege that in her desperate bid to secure her place in Matt's empire, Caryn masterminded a shocking scheme that funneled millions away from Amy's rightful share. Documents, private exchanges, and witness accounts suggest this wasn't a negotiation, it was a setup. If these claims are true, the official version of the Roloff farm sale wasn't just a family rift. It was a conspiracy. And now, as whispers turn into revelations, one thing has become crystal clear. The real story of the Roloff farm is only just beginning. So buckle up, because this is the Motion 24 you won't find anywhere else. And before we dive into the sordid details of this alleged conspiracy, do me a favor. If you believe in uncovering the truth and you want to support our deep dive into the stories that happen when the cameras are off, hit that like button, subscribe to Motion 24, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single breaking story. You're going to want to be here for all of this. It all started at the sticking point. There was a stalemate in the buyout talks for months. As far as the public was concerned, it was just a value debate. After more than 30 years of financial and emotional investment, Amy finally saw the farm for what it really was: a successful, diverse enterprise. It was more than simply a plot of land. It was a household name, a popular tourist spot, a seasonal cash cow, and the backdrop for an award-winning TV show. This was reflected in her valuation, which according to sources was in the upper single-digit millions. She could see the future earnings potential, the brand identity she helped develop, and the sweat equity. To her, it was like selling a portion of a family fortune. However, Caryn was having a significant impact on Matt. He started to repeat another storyline, one that portrayed the farm as nothing more than an ordinary piece of land. He began to describe it in terms of undeveloped land, operating expenses, and maintenance demands. Suddenly, the things he had championed, the enchantment, the brand, and the tourist income were being diminished. He said Amy was too sentimental and placed too much stock in her recollections. Our informed sources tell us that Caryn was always whispering the suggestion into his ear. Supposedly, she would utter phrases like, "She's letting her feelings cloud her judgment, Matt. We have to be realistic. It's just a farm." All that strain was paying off. Matt started to think Amy's asking price was completely out of line, as he wanted to put a stop to the tumultuous chapter and start his new life with Caryn. Neither side was willing to budge, and the standoff deepened. Hiring a professional third-party appraiser to overcome the impasse seemed like a reasonable and fair approach. An objective third party would evaluate the land, company, and brand and provide a final price. The results would be binding on both Matt and Amy. They had hoped that this would serve as the last word, the cold, hard reality that would let them part ways amicably. Amy was relieved because at last an expert would recognize the farm's genuine value, which would confirm her stance and guarantee her a just portion of the legacy she had worked so hard to build. She was oblivious to the fact that someone was ready to take over the process she had put her future in. The plot takes a gloomy turn at this point. Whoever Caryn was, she apparently thought this was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Finding the ideal appraiser was something she offered to spearhead. She assured Matt and Amy, "Let me handle this. I have some contacts." I'll find the best, most reputable person for the job to make sure this is all above board. Her statement seemed proactive and helpful. Indeed, it marked the commencement of the purported plot. Caryn was not interested in locating a trustworthy company. She reportedly disregarded every single one of Oregon's prestigious agricultural and business appraisal firms right away. Amy would gain control and the farm's capital would be drained, which Caryn now saw as her own future. She knew they would return with a number that was too similar to Amy's. Rumor has it that she instead used a clandestine back-channel connection, a friend of hers from her business days who was famous for creative problem-solving. This friend connected her with an individual we'll call Mr. Dalton. Dalton wasn't an elite appraiser. He was a freelancer with a checkered past, but he was known to be flexible in certain circles, if the price was right. In theory, he was legitimate due to his state accreditation, but some had doubts about his character. Rumors circulated about his history of legal disputes and transactions in which his valuations neatly matched the lowest possible figure for a client seeking a tax deduction or a favorable buyout. It was clear that he was the one Caryn had been seeking. Allegedly, a level of covert paranoia befitting a spy film was used to arrange the clandestine encounter, far from Roloff's domain, in a truck stop diner, a low-light booth, not in an office. The incident was recounted in terrifying detail by our source, who asserts that they are aware of the setup. A big bag was carried by Caryn as she arrived. With his coffee in hand, Dalton had already arrived. No minor chatter was exchanged. With icy efficiency, Caryn outlined the proposal. She went into detail about how she required an appraisal for a prominently located property. Even the most cautious estimations of the farm's value were millions of dollars lower than the ultimate figure that she needed, she told him, because of a protracted divorce case. The bribe was the next step. And source told us that Caryn took out a big manila envelope from the backpack. As a bonus for his help, it contained tens of thousands of dollars in cash. The fraud's down payment was this. On completion of the arrangement, and with Amy's approval based on his report, he would be paid a second greater sum. However, this deceit did not rely just on the money. He was also given a second file by Caryn. This particular one included altered farm financial documents. The work was done by experts. Caryn was well-versed in the farm's accounting records because of her long tenure working for Matt. She was quite skilled at manipulating numbers. She apparently taught Dalton a thing or two about creative accounting in the false records she gave him. The most lucrative part of the year for the farm, the pumpkin season, was grossly underreported. For instance, she presented the numbers from a year with exceptionally terrible weather as if they were from a normal season. We either didn't include or significantly cut the income from high-margin items like private tours, corporate event rentals, and merchandise sales. She reversed her actions on the expense side. The regular maintenance expenses were exaggerated. Allegedly, she created false bills for urgent structural work and costly equipment fixes that never took place. Instead of the successful tourist business it actually was, the paper trails she left behind depicted a struggling farm that was barely making ends meet. A charming but financially draining pastime. The screenplay she was giving him was already prepared, providing him with a fake basis to construct his report. As soon as he laid eyes on the money and the carefully constructed bogus evidence, Dalton grinned and gave his assent. An agreement was reached. The fake report showed up a few weeks down the road, complete with official-looking vocabulary, charts, and graphs. It was a masterpiece in its own right, housed in a glossy blue cover. It seemed very much like an official, expert report. Dalton had performed an excellent job. The surprising final worth was millions below Amy's fair estimate and, ostentatiously, just below the ceiling Caryn had specified. Carefully chosen distortions and half-truths abound throughout the report to back up this ridiculously low figure. Falsely claiming a general downturn in the agritourism market was the reason given. The article discussed the farm's decreased agricultural viability as a result of supposed soil degradation, completely disregarding the consistently abundant harvests. It hyped up imaginary potential zoning challenges and exaggerated the impact of local competition. The portion of the study concerning brand value was the most damaging because it was an open and deliberate fabrication. Despite generating hundreds of thousands of visitors and millions of dollars in income, the Roloff brand, the name recognition from an internationally syndicated television show that had been running for over a decade, was valued at nothing. This was like evaluating Coca-Cola and assigning a value of 0 to the brand. Dalton's assessment wrote it off as intangible and non-transferable, a meaningless footnote. The flag should have been raised immediately because it was a blatantly dishonest and daring lie. But it was the response Matt was hoping to hear. He had had enough of the constant bickering and mental anguish. The polished and expert report confirmed what Caryn had been telling him for months. He had falsely believed Amy was being unreasonable, and this proved it. Upon reviewing the official letterhead, which bore the signature and certification number of the appraiser, he consented to its acceptance. He probably held the report aloft and asserted, "See, Amy," before adding, "This is what the expert says. It's not me, it's the market. This is the number." He clearly wanted the process to end and saw this study as his ticket out. He couldn't fathom that Caryn, his companion and confidant, could be capable of such a deep betrayal. Amy was taken by surprise. Her spirits plummeted when she beheld the figure. "It hit me square in the stomach." It was degrading, not only lowly. This appraisal wiped off 30 years of her existence, her body of work, and her sense of self. She had an innate sense that it was wrong. Her whole body begged her to see through this deception. How, though, could she resist? A large, detailed report written by an accredited expert was presented here. It was packed with jargon and facts that were difficult for her to debunk. Matt insisted on treating it as gospel. By arguing against it, she once again came seen as the overly sentimental person who couldn't handle reality. She was ensnared, deceived, and completely helpless. Her freedom was being snatched away by the expert report, like a prison cell. We could have finished the story here. Amy grudgingly taking a fraction of what she was owed, Caryn and Matt stealing the property, and the truth being buried forever under a mountain of bogus paperwork. However, a crucial error in judgment was their failure to account for Chris Marek. Chris is frequently disregarded due to his reserved personality. On the other hand, Chris' real estate profession has been rather fruitful. He may not be an agrarian, but he is well-versed in real estate, appraisals, and the signs of a con artist. Chris did more than simply offer reassurance when Amy presented him with the report, her expression betraying her feelings of helplessness and perplexity. He requested access to the document. As Amy dozed off that night, Chris sat down at the kitchen table, armed with a calculator and a highlighter, and started reading. He grew increasingly irate as he read on. A forensic accountant wasn't necessary to see the errors. All it took was an expert eye. He was immediately struck by the comparable properties, or comps. This is a fundamental aspect of every evaluation, where the appraiser examines recently sold properties that are similar to the subject property. To state it gently, Dalton's mentioned comps were laughable. As soon as Chris clicked a few buttons on his laptop, he could see it. The foreclosed dairy farm in another county had serious soil contamination problems, and it was one of the comps. A second one was a piece of land that had no business or tourism zones whatsoever, rendering any comparison to Roloff farms meaningless. A third was much smaller and way off the beaten path from any main road. Instead of finding comparable properties, Dalton had selected rundown, unrelated ones in order to artificially lower the value. Although an untrained eye could overlook this typical example of amateur hour fraud, Chris, as a real estate specialist, saw it as a warning sign. After that, he moved on to the financial evaluation. He noticed the ridiculously high costs and the fortunately low revenues. Although he lacked access to the original texts, he possessed sound judgment. He had a good idea of how much money an Oregon pumpkin patch could make. He was aware of the rates that a venue with TV exposure may charge for events. Rather than appearing low, the report's figures appeared inconceivable. Finally, the most heinous deception of all, the brand value 0. Chris was well aware that the Roloff name was among the most important things about the farm. The company couldn't have functioned without it. Giving it the value of 0 was an intentional act of dishonesty, not a simple oversight. Holding the beautiful cover of the report in his hands made him feel cheap and unclean, so he closed it. The following morning, he approached Amy with a somber countenance. He sat her down and explained everything in detail. He displayed on his laptop the phony compensation claims. The financial claims, he said, were ridiculous. He went into detail about the meaning of the $0 brand valuation, which he pointed out to her. "Listen, Amy," he declared with an authoritative and conviction-filled tone. "This isn't an appraisal. It's a piece of fiction. This document was made with a singular intent to take money from you." Amy experienced a glimmer of optimism for the initial period in weeks. She was sane. She was correct in her intuition. Someone had cheated on her. She finally found an ally who could back her up with evidence. The subsequent discussion marked a watershed moment. Not only did Chris lose his cool, but he also became strategic. They needed to fight fire with fire, or, to be more precise, fight lies with truth. He advised Amy rather than merely dispute. He stated, "We need our own report. We need to hire the best, no questions asked. We need an appraisal so thorough, so respected, that it completely demolishes this piece of garbage." The issue was monetary. An expert commercial and agricultural appraisal of Roloff Farms' complex land would easily cost tens of thousands of dollars. A small fortune, to say the least. It was their own money that they would have to part with without any assurance of repayment. A huge risk was taken. She stands to lose both financially and in future negotiations if the revised appraisal turns out to be low. At this point, we need to investigate the hidden details by looking at the exclusive theories that our sources have told us. Our initial hypothesis revolves around Matt's mental condition. Was he a passive bystander or an active actor in this scheme of deceit? Our sources almost unanimously agree that Matt was not involved in the plot. Rather, he was the perfect mark. Matt was devastated by the divorce, eager to start anew with Caryn, and had a well-documented bias against trusting her business judgment. Caryn allegedly took advantage of this by portraying herself as his business-savvy, supportive partner who was merely attempting to shield him from Amy's unrealistic demands. His true role was that of a pawn in Caryn's scheme, a means by which she could justify her fraud. Rather than out of animosity toward Amy, his acceptance of the report stemmed from a profound, misguided faith in his new spouse and an underlying need for the dispute to cease. He would consider Caryn's eventual betrayal to be a betrayal of the world-shattering magnitude. Second, we have an exclusive theory on the kickback money. How did Caryn get her hands on an untraceable sum of 5 figures? There was no way to get your hands on this via an ATM. Supposedly, in the months preceding the assessment, Caryn had been discreetly selling off some of her pre-mat assets, including a modest stock portfolio and some jewelry, which would not have raised any suspicions on the joint financial records that she and Matt had prepared. It was supposedly for this reason that she was amassing a clandestine war chest. A terrifying degree of premeditation is shown. Taking over the farm by any means required was not an impulsive decision, but rather the result of careful planning. As the others played checkers, she shifted her focus to chess. Now we're back at the kitchen table, where Amy and Chris are sitting, confronted with a huge dilemma. Taking the huge risk was better than accepting the deceit and leaving with millions less than she was due. She had to decide between a peaceful but unfair existence and the stability of her financial situation. Amy Roloff made the life-altering choice right then. Chris was the one who had faith in her and recognized the truth throughout her self-doubt. so she went to him for validation. She nodded in agreement. "We should do it," she remarked. "Let's hire them." The contact was made by Chris the following day. He passed on a mid-tier company. He skipped the middleman and climbed straight to the top of the Pacific Northwest's most prestigious and costly agricultural evaluation agency. When it came to high-stakes lawsuits and real estate deals for 9 figures, banks and courts relied on these professionals. He detailed the problem without mentioning anyone by name and formally requested a fresh, comprehensive evaluation of Roloff Farms. An in-depth forensic examination of the company's financials, a certified value of the brand, and a forecast of future earnings were all part of the most extensive study he had asked for. Despite their high cost, the wheels of justice started to turn. They had launched their initial serious counterattack against the plot. They had little choice but to wait for the second report, which they hoped would include the truth and, by extension, the ability to reveal the entire deceitful plan. For the weeks that came after, Amy and Chris suffered through an agonizing period of nervous quiet. A second opinion had cost them a considerable amount of money, which they had gambled away in what could have been their last-ditch effort to save face. It seemed like an eternity before the new valuation firm even responded. Did her intuition lead her astray? Was Chris, in his haste to protect her, mistaking a conspiracy for the harsh facts of business? Disillusionment ate away to the newly sparked hope like a poison. On a Tuesday afternoon, it finally showed up. The package was delivered by courier rather than a plain manila envelope. In contrast to Dalton's weak assessment, I felt like it was a big deal. It sounded like the reality. They examined the package while sitting at the kitchen table, the very spot where Chris had initially analyzed the false report. The time has come for the decisive moment. Amy sliced open the packaging tape with shaky hands. 2 thick volumes, bound in spirals, were contained within. The cover was understated and sophisticated, featuring the emblem of the esteemed company. Compared to Dalton's shoddy document, it was completely different. Amy took the other volume, and Chris took the first. In their pursuit of the final valuation, they skipped over the introduction, methodologies, and disclaimers. That was Chris's discovery. He stood motionless while he scanned the page. For an indeterminate moment, he glanced up at Amy, but then a broad, leisurely smile crept across his face. After inverting it, he slid it across the table. Amy felt her breath catch in her throat as she glanced below. She was nearly astounded by the amount that stared back at her. Not only was it greater than Dalton's valuation, but it was more than $2 million more. It had almost doubled. Even though Matt and Caryn had made fun of the figure she had secretly hoped to achieve, one that was too sentimental and unrealistic, it was actually reasonable and conservative. All of her gut feelings were confirmed by the report. She was sane. Never was she avaricious. Her assessment was correct. She broke down in tears of relief and validation. She had been gaslit for months, made to feel stupid and insignificant. However, the evidence was in her possession. Truth was in her hands. They spent the next few hours going over the specifics, and it became horrifyingly obvious how big the original appraiser's scam was. Extensive research and analysis went into this latest report. Instead of dairy farms in crisis, the section on comparable properties highlighted successful local agritourism enterprises and wineries that attract a similar kind of customers and have a similar level of name recognition. A forensic investigation was conducted for the financial analysis. The farm was determined to be an extremely lucrative and expanding business by the appraisers, who had utilized industry-standard algorithms to predict future revenues from pumpkin season, tourists, and media licensing. The valuation of the brand came next. The new study devoted a full 30 pages to discussing Roloff. It looked at the show's intrinsic multi-generational audience, its social media involvement, and its worldwide reach. It put a monetary value on the goodwill that Dalton had written off as worthless. They arrived at a brand value that was greater than half of Dalton's total property appraisal. Comparing the two reports side by side was like putting a Rembrandt painting next to a child's crayon sketch. In contrast to the meticulous, evidence-based evaluation of reality, the first was a careless, open-book counterfeit. The elation Amy had been experiencing started to solidify into a savage fury. This was a planned, multi-million-dollar heist, not an honest oversight or disagreement amongst experts. In their possession was the false report. They possessed evidence that disproved it. It was still necessary for them to provide evidence for the why. They had to construct an indisputable trail of evidence that started with the crooked appraiser, Mr. Dalton, and ended at Caryn Chandler's house. Chris Marek's role as strategist and guardian came into its own at this point. Because of his extensive experience in the industry, he was familiar with its seedier side. He was aware that an unscrupulous appraiser such as Dalton would not jeopardize his license and maybe face jail time for an ordinary price. A hefty kickback was bound to occur. Additionally, a means of locating it had to exist. It would be insufficient to argue with Matt only based on the second report. Under his defense, he would say that they shopped for a number they liked. Something more was required of them. Uncontestable evidence of a plot was required. This leads us to yet another previously undisclosed detail, which is an exclusive theory that our sources have been sharing with us. Amy and Chris refrained from attempting a solo investigation. They realized they needed experts to handle the magnitude of dishonesty they were confronted with. They supposedly paid a private investigator out of their own pockets. Not just private investigator, a discreet, highly respected forensic expert in financial fraud. The details they had, including Dalton's identity, the bogus report, and the chronology of events, were all handed over to him. Locate the dirt, locate the connection, and locate the money. That was his mission. Mr. Kane, the investigator, wasted no time getting to work. He began by researching Dalton's work background extensively. A pattern was what he discovered. Conflicts were easy prey for Dalton, a bottom feeder. 2 previous cases involving contentious partnership dissolutions were found by Kane. The claims alleged deceptive undervaluation. The records of both lawsuits were sealed after they were quietly resolved out of court for a substantial amount. In addition, he discovered that the State Appraisal Board had received 2 formal complaints against Dalton, which had been enigmatically withdrawn right before the hearing was supposed to take place. Here was a man who was well-versed in legal ambiguity, a master at taking money to either solve issues or make them worse. The professional background, however, was really incidental. As usual, Kane anticipated that the money would hold the key to the story. A competent private investigator has legal and quasi-legal ways of following a target's financial footprints, even though accessing their personal bank data is infamously tough. Looking for any suspicious behavior in the weeks leading up to the evaluation, Kane zeroed in on Dalton's known bank accounts. Then he uncovered it, the damning evidence. A cash payment was made into Dalton's personal checking account just 2 days after the purported covert rendezvous between Caryn and Dalton at the Truck Stop Cafe, according to records. Tens of thousands of dollars was the enormous sum. A classic money laundering tactic. The deposit was made in cash and spread out over multiple transactions to evade automatic federal reporting requirements. There was no way that the timing could have been a coincidence. The kickback had to have been this. The digging continued as Kane persisted. The next day, after Matt and Amy had received Dalton's formal bogus report, he discovered an even bigger cash payment. It was obvious that this was the last payment, the compensation for an excellent job. The secret was in the untraceable funds. Arrogantly, it was a clumsy error. It is probable that Caryn and Dalton believed they could avoid detection by paying with cash. What they didn't anticipate, though, is that a bank account receiving a large sum of money suddenly should raise serious suspicions. It's a unique path. In order to strengthen the case, Kane's group also retrieved data from cell phone towers. While not an exact science, the data managed to locate burner phones associated with shell companies, which he had linked to Dalton, and astonishingly, a P.O. box that Caryn used for her own business, in the same area as the truck stop diner on the night of the proposed meeting. A lengthy and damaging report was compiled by the private investigator from his discoveries. It included cell tower location data, Dalton's questionable work history, sealed case summaries, bank accounts showing highlighted cash deposits, and more. It was he that brought the parcel to Chris and Amy. The last pieces of the jigsaw came together as they read it. Their account of the crime was now comprehensive and unchangeable. 3 reports had already been produced. One that was fake, another that was authentic and revealed the lies. And now, the file from the private investigator had shown the criminal conspiracy and the money trail that had led them to the source. All of their needs were met. The showdown has to happen soon. It was crucial to choose this location for this confrontation. No public space would do. A neutral office would not be appropriate. It had to be in a significant, historically significant place. The original farmhouse was their choice because it was the site of both the beginning and the finish. Because Amy had some fresh facts to consider regarding the buyout, she called Matt to advise him that they needed to arrange a final meeting. She wanted Caryn to stay out of it, saying it was a personal issue between the farm's co-founders and that it was a family affair. Matt probably thought Amy was going to give in and acquiesce. The truth was waiting for him like an ambush, and he had no clue. Reaching the farmhouse, he exuded a worn-out sense of superiority, as if he had already achieved victory. He likely anticipated a greater number of impassioned pleadings and tears. He took a seat at the dining room table, which had witnessed several family gatherings and heated debates. "All right, Amy," he probably began in a condescending manner. "What is it? I pray that you are prepared to take the appraiser's number and go on with your life." Amy chose not to dispute. Her voice remained low. Chris, who was silent but commanding by her side, joined her in laying the evidence on the table. The 2 bound volumes of the legal evaluation were first slipped into his lap by Amy. "Look at this, Matt, before we talk about that figure. An accurate evaluation looks like this." Likely Matt scowled and tossed it aside without even taking a look inside. "Oh, please. You actually went out and bought the desired number. Nothing comes out of it. A neutral appraiser was agreed upon. It is the legally binding report." He wasn't neutral, Matt. Chris spoke in a low and steady voice. Having done so, he set the private investigator's portfolio down on the table. It came down with a resounding thud. He flipped it open and turned it so Matt could see it. "We looked into the man Caryn hired. They patiently guided him through it, step by painful step, for the following 10 minutes. They presented him with Dalton's legal case history. They gave him a side-by-side comparison of the real and counterfeit compensations." There was a brief moment of bewilderment as Matt's arrogance started to crumble. Yet he remained unwavering in his rejection. "This is merely based on circumstances. The man's reputation is being tarnished by your actions." Last but not least, Chris passed the bank statements across the table. He indicated the first checked box as the one he wanted. "Matt, 2 days after Caryn met with your appraiser, she deposited $50,000 into his account. The second entry, he pointed out, showed an additional $75,000 in cash that was placed the day following the receipt of his report." Matt stared down at the documents. As he desperately sought an alternate explanation, you could see his thoughts racing. A windfall from the lottery, an inheritance, anything may happen. His voice trembled with fear as he stammered, unable to articulate where the money had from. Instead of wrath, Amy's eyes betrayed a deep melancholy as she stared at him. "Stop, Matt. End it already. How was the appraiser located? So who offered to be in charge of everything? For what reason was the procedure kept under wraps? Who has been quietly telling you I was being emotional and greedy, and you should listen to me, for months now? I think that was all." His wall of denial crumbled. The reality befell Matt Roloff at that terrifying time. It wasn't merely the litigation and bank records. It was the horrifying precision with which he perceived his life's final 6 months. Every interaction with Caryn on the farm's worth, her callous disregard for Amy's worries, her peculiar obsession with locating the appraiser independently, her guidance on how to phrase his questions, and her continuous assurances that she was merely protecting their future. He had served as her pawn. Accusations of irrationality were leveled against his ex-wife, who was the mother of his 4 children, by him, while his fiancée secretly plotted a criminal conspiracy. He was deceived and used as a pawn in a multi-million-dollar scam by the lady he loved, the one he had prioritized over his family. His cheeks became a pale shade. He gasped for air because the betrayal was so deep and complete. He was more than a helpless victim. He actively contributed to his own demise as an unwilling participant. The details surrounding what transpired right after that altercation are classified, but our informants have conjured up the best possible explanation. No one contacted the authorities right away. Nobody went ballistic. There's no way the Roloffs do business that way. The program would have terminated, and the family's meticulously built public image would have been ruined by a scandal of this scale involving secret kickbacks and fraud. It would have also triggered a federal probe. Rather, a fresh round of clandestine negotiations was initiated. The cover-up is our last and most important exclusive theory. Matt found himself cornered by indisputable evidence. He was helpless to protect Caryn. There was proof he couldn't ignore. Thus, a secret agreement was reached. A symbolic tear was drawn from the bogus evaluation. With the final buyout price that Amy received, she was able to purchase her new home and feel confident about her future because it was significantly closer to the legitimate appraisal. Her and Chris's solemn promise to remain silent was the price they paid for this financial fairness. There would be no record of the dishonest appraiser, the bribe, or Caryn's plot. According to the government, it's just a simple, if contentious, disagreement over price. A mutually assured destruction scenario was avoided through the agreement. Our informants tell us that this clandestine cover-up is the missing piece to the puzzle that led to the subsequent events. It clarifies why Matt's actions toward the farm took such a strange turn. The audience was baffled. Why, after promising his kids a legacy, did he just make it so they couldn't afford to buy it? I don't see why his asking prices were so outrageous. What gave him the impression that he was so sensitive about the property? Most people thought it had something to do with greed. However, our theory suggests that the reality is significantly more complicated and sorrowful. Matt no longer saw the farm as a memorial. Rather, he saw it as the site of a murder. The treachery of Caryn and his own shameful naivete were constantly brought to light by it. The deceit she was prepared to perpetrate in order to acquire it had contaminated every inch of land. His irrational actions were a result of his inner turmoil, not an attempt to milk his sons for all they were worth. What kind of poisonous lie could he use to sell his boys a legacy? He wasn't trying to negotiate a lower price or lower his unreasonable expectations. Rather, he was subtly sabotaging himself by trying to keep his children away from the property that represented his greatest personal tragedy. Due to the poisoning, he was unable to sell them the farm. What we saw on television was nothing more than a polished illusion. A sanitized, carefully edited version designed to protect reputations and keep the cameras rolling. But behind those bright smiles and edited confessionals, a darker truth was unfolding. This wasn't just a family disagreement over land. It was a story of fraud, betrayal, and a secret cover-up so deep that it nearly tore the Roloff legacy apart. Amy may have walked away with her share of justice, but she also carried with her the unbearable truth, the knowledge of what Caryn had done behind closed doors. Matt, meanwhile, chose to stay beside the very woman who had deceived him, forced to live every day under the shadow of a secret that could destroy everything. And then there's the farm, once the beating heart of the Roloff family. now a silent monument to a crime that was never prosecuted and a betrayal that was never exposed. The truth is, the rift in the Roloff family was never about money or property lines. It was about trust, shattered by a secret so dark it left scars that time may never heal. So what do you think? Could this insider revelation finally explain Matt's strange behavior and the heartbreaking final chapter of Roloff Farms? Share your thoughts below, and if you believe the cameras have only shown us half the story, make sure to subscribe to Motion 24 and turn on that notification bell. Because trust me, the secrets buried beneath Roloff Farms are far from over. More update. LPBW Matt Roloff shocks with dramatic new makeover. And LPBW Amy Roloff shares unexplainable illness. Tori Roloff starts new job after leaving show. And Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler apart on special day. Is it over? I will explain everything. The formal cancellation of the TLC show has left many Little People Big World viewers wondering what cast members, like Matt Roloff, are doing now. The most current rumors have it that Matt has gotten a complete makeover. This time around, what exactly did he do? Despite airing for 25 seasons, Little People Big World was canceled. Many viewers have followed the Roloff kids since the show's 2006 launch as they've grown into adulthood. There was no turning back the clock after Zach and Tori decided to end things, and an official cancellation shortly afterward. Despite the show's cancellation after season 25, insiders claim that only Matt Roloff wanted the Little People Big World franchise to continue. Given that Matt Roloff is constantly considering business matters, it is not surprising that he wants the show to continue in this respect. Podcast hosts Zach and Tori Roloff have been quite busy, as their followers may attest. In addition to Matt Roloff's recent display of new gear, Amy Roloff has been keeping busy as a substitute teacher and spending more time with Chris Marek. Many viewers of Little People Big World wonder what the family is doing now that the show is ended and they are no longer obligated to conform their life to TLC's filming schedule. It appears like Matt Roloff is making full use of his newfound leisure time by drastically altering his appearance, according to his most recent updates. Fans of Little People Big World may be surprised to see that Matt Roloff is growing his hair out, as evidenced by his most recent social media posts. It's quite long. This is totally different from what viewers are accustomed to, and it's long enough for him to tie it in the back now. An internet video has surfaced featuring Matt Roloff flaunting his newly styled hair, which is long enough to require a ponytail at the back. Matt expresses his desire to get his hair chopped and describes his current style as too long in the video. This new style, nevertheless, appears to be one that Caryn Chandler liked. While filming, Caryn Chandler gushed over Matt's so much progress in his hair-thinning journey. Nevertheless, Matt remains skeptical. Crazy and ridiculous are his words to describe his present hairstyle, he continues. The last time Matt had it this bad was in the 1980s, when he was a senior in high school, according to Matt. The most recent hairdo on Matt Roloff. What do you think? Should he return to his short hairstyle or keep it longer? Write a comment and tell us. LPBW Amy Roloff shares unexplainable illness. Actress Amy Roloff is opening up about her mysterious sickness. Her current health is poor, and she felt compelled to inform her fans of this. She took to the internet to inform everyone about her unusual symptoms. Then what is Amy's situation? Is that all right? For the rest of the information she has shared thus far, continue reading. You might be aware of Amy's recent travels if you follow her on social media or have been reading TV shows Ace's LPBW news updates. The reality TV personality got the chance to take a lengthy vacation back to Michigan, where she visited family and friends. It seemed like she had a blast with her family in the images she provided. Fans are ecstatic to find that her dad is still doing great. Here is a stunning photo of Amy taken in Michigan. Amy also had some bad news to share among all the nice things that happened during her trip. Amy Roloff spoke to her fans about her mysterious illness on Instagram stories this week. Her return home journey was marred by misfortune. Daisy May and her owner recorded a short video in which the subject discusses her recovery from a sickness and the trip back from Michigan. Anxieties, a headache, and a strained lower back were among the symptoms she described to her fans when she returned home. "I have no idea what's happening. According to the mother of 4, I'm still trying to get over that." The LPBW star is making walking her puppy, Daisy May, a priority in her wellness regimen so that she can heal faster. As her video came to a close, she stated, "We'll see what happens, but I'm moving. Maybe all it takes is some exercise and some sunshine." Amy is glad to be back home, even though she is so sick and doesn't know what's wrong. Upon returning home to be with her loves Chris and Daisy May, the LPBW star expressed her joy. Getting outside and moving her body is a good indicator, even though she might not feel 100%. "We can only hope that Amy's health returns soon. As she gets well, she will likely provide another update." Is the news of Amy Roloff's strange and mysterious sickness shocking to you? Have you any guesses as to what it could be? Leave your thoughts in the space provided. LPBW Tori Roloff starts new job after leaving show. Actress Tori Roloff has begun a new career after leaving the popular TLC reality show Little People, Big World. They are responsible for providing for their 3 children, who were born to her and Zach Roloff. So, where has the LPBW alum been lately? To learn more about her new professional direction, continue reading. Those who follow the show know that Tori Roloff is the wife of Zach Roloff and the mother of his 3 kids. Hosts of a podcast that LPBW fans enjoy, they are also raising Josiah, Lila, and Jackson. In their candid responses, Tori and Zach reveal all. Tori worked as a kindergarten teacher and a farmhand on the set of the popular TLC reality show. She decided to prioritize her children above all else in 2017 and quit her job as a result. She has begun a new career in Zach, and she have finished Little People, Big World. The preschool instructor is now 34 years old and works at a Christian school. It is not a long way to go because she lives only down the street from her house. In order to officially welcome Tori and introduce her to the community, the school took to social media to send out a message. Along with Tori's likes, they included a professional photo of her. Plus, it was entertaining because Tori revealed her interests and hobbies outside of work. Being a teacher will get her a cheaper tuition fee, but it's not obvious if this is her children's school. The LPBW star's return to the teaching profession is hardly surprising given her lifelong love of the field. Having a reality star instruct their children, though, must be an intriguing prospect for the parents. Upon seeing this announcement, the followers were overjoyed. In addition, some were celebrating the excellent news because they had first-hand experience with her teaching. They were impressed by her professionalism and happy for her that she could go back to her origins. Tori Roloff's next adventure was much anticipated by Little People, Big World fans. Yay! They were very supportive and encouraging since they understood she was doing what she was meant to do, her job. Tori was fantastic as my son's kindergarten teacher. I would be incredibly lucky to have Tori as my preschool instructor. I want to congratulate Tori on her new position. Lovely, too, was the widespread belief that she would adore her new school and the community it offered. The former LPBW star has taken flight, and here is the ideal landing location. Do you believe Tori Roloff will remain a teacher for the foreseeable future? And are you glad she returned to the profession? Post your opinions in the space provided. Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler apart on special day. Is it over? The recent separation of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler on a special day has fueled further rumors that these two are having problems in paradise. Now, what has been going on with them lately, and what caused their separation? Since Little People, Big World was officially discontinued after season 25. Some fans have conjectured that since the cameras are no longer there, Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler's romance will end. Indeed, there are others who believe that Matt and Caryn are both opportunists who use their relationship for the benefit of the cameras. However, some fans believe that now that the Little People Big World TLC cameras are no longer, there is much of a motivation to maintain the relationship for the sake of a plot. Viewers have not wasted any time in pointing out the warning signals that these two are having difficulty in paradise. The fact that Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler have not yet tied the knot is one of the major indicators that fans of Little People Big World raise about problems in their relationship. By the end of 2024, a Hawaiian wedding was supposed to take place, but that obviously never happened. Since his mother is getting older, Matt Roloff was worried about her health at the time, which is why the wedding arrangements were put on hold. According to some admirers, however, postponing the wedding can also indicate that the relationship's overall foundation is flawed. The recent Valentine's Day separation of Matt Roloff and Caryn Chandler is further adding to the trouble in paradise discussion. It's a big day for couples to go out and spend time together every year, and the fact that Caryn was in Arizona and Matt was in Oregon is a significant clue to individuals who are looking for a partner that there might be real problems in their relationship. Matt Roloff sent his fans a snowy update, writing, "It's cold and chilly here in Oregon, but it's really lovely. Power outages are common at this time of year. However, I'm ready this time with some powerful generators and some serious firm power equipment. Admire my Costco coupons. Roloff Farms is fun, but I'm hoping to hook up with Caryn, who is in sunny Arizona a few days earlier than me." Do you believe that Caryn Chandler and Matt Roloff may be on the verge of splitting up? Please share in the comments section below. No more today? What are you thinking about this gossip today? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel to get more updates like this. Thank you.